Okay, you've heard a lot about 609 letters for credit repair. Let me tell you a little bit about how to use a 609 letter properly to successfully get items removed from your credit. Check this out. First of all, let's understand exactly what is a 609 letter. A 609 letter is widely used as a credit repair tool. It's called a 609 letter because it's referencing Section 609 of the Fair Credit Reporting Act, which says that you have the right to dispute unverifiable information on your credit report. So, right, anything else on your report, they should be able to verify. Now, to get stuff removed, well, let me say this: it's often misunderstood, and you've probably seen it elsewhere, that the 609 is a magic bullet letter that is guaranteed to remove negative items from your credit report if you use this, blah, blah, blah. It is an effective one. It's no magic involved, but you got to understand what it's meant to do and exactly what you want to do. So, the 609 letter works by formally requesting that the credit bureaus provide documented proof of any of the accounts that they are reporting. So let me tell you how that goes. It's 609 should be done in writing. It's a written request. There's no electronic version. So you want to write a letter. But okay, what makes a 609 letter a 609 letter? All right, here's some of the key components. You want to make sure in your letter that you're requesting documentation. You're asking the credit bureau to provide specific documentation, including the original signed contract for the debt or any other statements that verify the accuracy of what's being reported on the credit report. In that letter, you should also formally dispute and question the validity of the information or the account itself in its entirety, so that in that way the 609 is acting as a dispute. It's like a combination of a verification request and a dispute in one letter. So I think that's sometimes why they try to hype it up as a magic one, because it's doing two things. Okay, so it requires the bureau to verify everything, and so you're disputing the validity, thus disputing it itself. And then you also want to make sure in your letter that there is basically a legal framework. The letter is based on your consumer rights in the Fair Credit Reporting Act, like I said, specifically the right to receive copies of the information in your credit file. So it's not just them validating and verifying, but sending you copies of it and saying, here's what we have to validate and verify. So they got to send you copies. And in the pursuit of them doing so, they're going to have to review it. So that's that. So basically, how is 609 letters different from other dispute letters? It's powerful. 609 is a great letter. But it has a specific purpose and does not serve all credit repair needs. So it's not a catch-all letter. That's why I say it's not a magic bullet letter, but it is a good letter. And here's how it's different. So basically, the main purpose of a 609 letter is verification, like I said before, because you're specifically requesting documented proof of the account, the accuracy of the information on the account. Whereas some general dispute letters are actually only challenging the validity. And so they're just saying, we don't think it's right, investigate. The problem with that is oftentimes when you use a general dispute letter, and many of you guys may have seen it, where they just come back and say, the account meets FCRA requirements. It didn't do what you wanted to do. Because then you don't know how it met the requirements, which is your right by law, which is what the 609 letter recovers. Because you say it meets the requirements, show me. And so in that letter, you also want to have legal grounds, because within your 609 letter, because the letter is rooted in the 609 code of the section of the FCRA, which pertains to your right to access of the information on your report. Whereas other letters like the 611 or the 623 letters which they pertain to correcting inaccurate or unverifiable information. Again, they don't ask for anything in return. They ask for action only. So if you want documentation, 609 is the way to go. If you want them to take action only, and you're not concerned about documentation, say you already did have the documentation, you just want them to take action because you already have documentation proving that it's inaccurate. So that letter, if it's 609, usually it's coming before the 611 or 623. But if after the 609 you're using the 611 or 623 for them, make them take action based on what you got. And then lastly, you want to make sure in your 609 letter there is language that makes a actual documentation request. It should use the words like, give me a copy of the signed contract or original agreement, versus letters like the method of verification, where you're asking for details on how the Bureau went about verifying it. So that's a big difference between the 609 and the method of verification, or what we call the MOV. So remember, these letters are slightly different in what they're asking for and what you're asking for and what you want them to do. So when do you use a 609 letter? You want to use the 609 letter if you believe the items on your report are unverifiable, accurate, or missing a lot of information. So if you already know about this account and you say, you know what, I know all about this account and it's totally wrong. So if you know for a fact that it's inaccurate, use the 609. But more importantly, you go this route. If you say, I don't know anything about this account, or I'm suspicious of it, I think it's identity theft, this can't possibly be mine. Say for instance, it's a date. It happened on a date that you couldn't possibly have applied for anything. Or it could be an account for something that you've never heard of before. There's no way it can possibly be yours. So if it's totally unfamiliar or you suspect it's fraud, use a 609. That way, by asking for proof, if they can't come up with it, or by pulling the proof and they realize, oh, this isn't you, the ID that they use to extend the credit doesn't have your picture on it. So in the process of verifying things, often uncovers inaccuracies. If the debt is not recognized by you at all, or if you don't recall it, you want to ask for that verification or the original account to either jog your memory and say, oh yeah, this is mine, I do have to deal with it, or nope, totally not mine, we need to get rid of it. And then lastly, if you want to validate a high impact item, and what do I mean by high impact items? Those are items like charge-offs, collections, repossessions, where verification may be challenging to the Bureau. By challenging these type of items with the 609 letters, it will typically prompt removal of if the proper documentation cannot be produced by the credit bureaus. So those type of items, once they've been moved on and shifted over and sold and resold, it gets real hard for the bureaus to verify these. So 609 helps too. Again, that's another reason why it has a reputation on the internet as being a magic bullet, because it can typically apply to a lot of folks who fall into that bucket. Now, there are some pros and cons when using a 609 letter. One pro is that it's because it's simply a verification requirement, it forces the Bureau to verify the items with the original documentation, and if they can't do it, there's a high degree of success that the item gets removed because of that. Another pro is it is very effective against unverified information, because like I said, if you're fairly certain that this can't possibly be verified because it can't possibly be yours, it's highly unlikely that it's yours, it can be removed from your credit report because it's unlikely that the credit bureau can verify it. And then it's also great for catching errors, because like I said, in the process of gathering the documentation to provide for you per your request, they got to go over it to say, oh, is this what he's looking for, he or she? And then they say, oh wait, this is not them, oh wait, this is wrong. So in the process of gathering that information to provide it to you, they may discover an error that will allow it to be removed, or grossly updated to remove a lot of the negative items that shouldn't have been there in the first place. So it's very helpful in those. Now, some of the cons of using the 609 letter, obviously the number one is it's not guaranteed. So again, it's not a magic bullet. There is no guarantee that it's going to lead to a removal. You know, it doesn't guarantee that those negative items are going to get removed. But because obviously if the Bureau has documentation and they're verifying that it is yours, it's good news, bad news situation. Number one, it's bad news because, oh shucks, yes, it's yours. The good news is you know it's yours now. You don't have to doubt it anymore, and then now you can decide how do you want to handle it. You may want to consider, now that it's been verified, you know it's yours, you may, because you owe, Pookie, you owe. Everybody who watch Sing New Jack City know what I'm talking about. You may want to consider a pay to delete to negotiate paying it off and getting it off your credit, whether in whole or in part. And you'll see my video about working with collection agencies to do that. It may not be effective against verified debt, obviously, like I said, because if the debt is legitimate and is well documented, the Bureau most likely will retain the item, and obviously the 609 letter, it won't help with a legitimate item. And of course it's limited to verification requests only, because like I said, you're not challenging it at this point, you're only verifying the information. But I can tell you, having the right information is great, but again, 609 letter can help if it's discovered, if errors and inaccuracies are discovered during the verification process. So there's still hope there. Now, if for outright errors, you want to use a standard dispute letter, one of the other ones. All right, so now quickly I'm going to compare 609 letters with other dispute letters. All right, now comparing a 609 letter with a 611. So you say, when do I use a 609 and when do I use a 611? Now, because a 611 is a letter that challenges the accuracy of the information, if you use a 611 after using a 609, which you're requesting the documentation, if they can't provide it, then you would use a 611 letter behind a 609 letter to challenge the accuracy, because if they can't verify it, then you can challenge the accuracy. Boom, 1-2 punch. 609 and 611 gets it removed for you. Highly likely it will get removed for you. So using a 609 if you're uncertain about the item's origin, and then you use the 611 if you know it's incorrect, like I said before, 1-2 punch. Now, using a 609 letter versus a method of verification letter. Of course, 609 focuses on requesting documentation related to the origin of the debt, in other words, verification. Now, the method of verification letter is also verification, but the method of verification letter is focusing on how it was verified, the actual process. What did they use? In other words, what documentation did they access? What documentation did they use? And not just saying, we checked with the creditor and the creditor said it was right. So the MOV reports the information on how it was verified, which is just as important as what it was used to verify. So you would use your 609 letter to see the original documents, and then you use the method of verification to if it's previously verified, and then you say, okay, how is it verified? And if they say it was verified but they didn't send you the documentation, then you ask for how is it verified. But if they sent you the documentation, that'll usually tell you how. But if they don't, that's where you ask for that. And again, I want to remind you guys that by law, under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, a creditor or credit bureau does not have to honor a request for MOV, a method of verification, if you do an online dispute. They only are required to honor MOVs when you do written disputes. So keep that in mind. Now, of course, you want to use the 609 to see the original documents. You want to use the MOV after if the previous dispute was verified, but you doubt the verification process. Like, where did they get those documents from? Who did they get them from? So on and so forth. Now, comparing the 609 letter to a debt validation letter, obviously, you send a 609 letter to the credit bureaus. You send a debt validation letter to the actual collectors to confirm that they have the right to collect on that debt that they're reporting. And so by using a 609 letter in combination with the debt validation letter, that's a distinction between the two. So a lot of people get confused. They send these letters to the wrong parties. So keep in mind, 609 letter is for creditors. The debt validation is for debt collectors. Now I'm going to talk real quick, best strategies. Customize the letter for accuracy and be specific. Attach ID and supporting documents. Request specific documentation. I always recommend you send everything by certified mail with a return receipt so you can track it. And you want to follow up after 30 days of your request to make sure that they honored it. And so if the Bureau does not resend response within 30 days, you want to follow up with a reminder. And then if they haven't done that, you may want to consider the method of verification letter if you're unsatisfied with that. Now here's a few pro tips from maximizing results using the 609 letter. You want to be persistent but strategic. If the item remains, follow up with 611 dispute. Well, I'm going to tell you like this. You want to follow up with the 611 dispute or the method of verification, because sometimes persistence uncovers errors or inconsistencies in and of itself, like I said before. You want to use the 609 letter with other dispute methods, and because like I said before, you want to use them in combo. For instance, if the debt collector cannot validate a debt, this might support your case when you're disputing it with the 609 letter to the credit bureau. So if the creditor come back and they say they can't dispute it, then you send a 609 letter to the creditor and to the credit bureau. The creditor will tell the credit bureau the same thing. Credit bureau can't verify it, so then they'll remove it. And you want to make sure that you track all your correspondence and responses. So you want to keep a record of each letter that you send, each response that you receive, and all the dates involved. So you have a timeline for each one of your disputes. This is important whenever you have to escalate, or if you find yourself needing to file a complaint with the CFPB, or hiring a consumer lawyer if you sue them because they won't resolve the issue fairly. Consider professional help from someone like me when you're dealing with high impact collections or legal issues like I talked about, and of course you want to do that. Now I talked about these letters and how to draft them, and then I talked specifically about the 609, the elements that you need to put in the letter to create an effective 609 letter, and then I talked about using the various methods of mail and tracking of your debt. Now you can certainly do all this manually, but I just want to tell you that I have a platform for a DIY credit repair, which will, after uploading your credit report, it will identify all your negative item issues. If you want to make requests like verifications, validations, verifications, disputes, it will generate 609 letters, 611 letters, 623 letters specifically for you and your accounts, thus ensuring that your request is gets processed through the system, and that you get the actual answers that you're looking for, rather than trying to use a general dispute letter. Now, of course, there are options out there. There are 609 letters that people sell and offer. Some of them even give them for free, and then you can take that and you can spend some time tweaking it for your specific situation. That certainly you can do that, but my system will do all that for you. Plus, when you're submitting when you do that, it creates the letter. You can print it, you add your documents, you can throw it in an envelope, and you can either send it through regular mail or certified mail, which I recommend. But the beauty of this is the system will help you track all of that stuff as well. I still recommend that you print out hard copies of what you mail, and then when you receive something in the mail, you can have that in a manila folder for your own records. I always recommend that. And so after seeing this video, if you're interested in having access to that platform, you can either go to my website, you can click on any of the links down there, and if you register with me, I can grant you access to that platform, and it's a great tool. Currently it's at no cost. You just have to get your credit monitoring in there, and then you can certainly use that, because my goal is to help you if you want to get your credit fixed and you want to save some money by just doing the work yourself and understanding the process, so you can learn how to manage your credit in the future by helping you get your credit together. Then I can help you get funding. I can help you with a mortgage and all of those other things that you want to do with credit. So that's it through 609 letters in a nutshell. I wanted to keep it short, relatively short and sweet. Got any questions? If you like this video, please, if you're not already subscribe to my channel. It's no cost. That'll get you the notifications. Feel free to share this with others by clicking the share arrow, and you can share it through various means, whether it be Facebook, or you can share it through messaging or texting, and that way folks can do that, and then encourage them to subscribe as well. But the big thing about subscribing is you'll get the notification every time I send a video, and hopefully you find this informative. Please add comments. I'd like to know what's going on. What do you guys think? If you want to tell me about any topics you want me to cover in a future video, I can certainly do that. So 609 letters, get busy, y'all. We can get you together. Talk to you soon. Take care, family.